Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Michael with the Real 1%. Back at you guys live with a special guest, my boy Sean. How you doing, my man?
Hey, Mike. Good to see you.
You too, man. Been too long, bro.
I am way too long, man.
Hey, so what's up? Hey, but no, I was gonna say, like, we're back at everybody. You know, the viewers. We're at the game plan to success. I call it the last assault, your last mission, whatever you want to call it. But we're talking. You know, what we're focusing on here really with this podcast is military to civilian transition and what that looked like for you, and just what people should take heed to ultimately succeed in their endeavors of leaving the military. So if you don't mind, for the viewers listening out there, if you want to introduce yourself and just, you know, maybe touch on a little bit of why you joined the military and anything that you want to touch on during the military and sort of lead us up to the time you started thinking about separating.
All right. First off, thanks for having me, Mike.
Bro.
I'm Sean. I'm from Massachusetts. I'm in the southeast side. I grew up in a town called New Bedford. If anybody knows anything about that, it's the fishing and whaling capital of the country. It's the Portuguese landmass, you know, for the East Coast. And, you know, it's one of them towns. It's a working town. It's a fishing town. You're going to go either way on people who make it out of that place, or they just kind of stick around. It's a tough town. So,
yeah.
Quite a bit of people do the military, usually the Navy or the Coast Guard, because we all learn fishing on our first jobs and stuff like that, you know. So, you know, I just did something completely out of the box. So before I joined the Army, you know, I just kind of was a kid with no direction, a regular kid in the 90s. I'm a baby in my family. My parents were retired when I was born. So by the time I was, you know, young, like 10, 12, they're pushing 60, you know. So yeah, my siblings were in their 30s and 40s. And, you know, it's just the way it was. I was just a baby. And so they involved me in sports as much to keep me, you know, active, because they were too exhausted. They had went back to work, started their second careers after they just had this child in the house. You know, fast forward through, I never really was like a student and stuff like that. You know, it was extracurricular activities all the time. And problems with authority. And it was only so long before I ran to the streets, you know. By the time I hit high school, you know, everyone's out of the house. You know, my parents are well on their backside, you know.
Yeah. You're running the streets, though, man. You're running reckless out of New Bedford, man, eating scallops and shit. What you got?
Yeah, you did right. But yeah, I took to the streets, and I wasn't doing any good. I went to join the Navy right out of high school, and I got denied. I was on probation, and it was a misdemeanor, but I was still on probation. I was flagged. I couldn't go. The recruiter said, come back at the end of the summer, and I got myself on probation for something else. And that just went that way. And that was how it was. Look at your face.
That's a New Bedford way, man. Yeah, come on, straight an asshole, dude. Let's go.
Yeah, it was like that for a few more years. Me and my had a kid. Me and my daughter's mother, we were teenagers. So I'm getting in trouble with teenage parents, living together back home with my parents, living with back, you know what I mean? All that teenage drama stuff. And I just was on a decline slope. Started getting my shit together, got 2 jobs, and my father died. And I was on probation for like 3 things. You know, I was paying child support for a child that I wasn't even with the mother. You know, I was I was a poster boy for bullshit, you know. And when my father died, it gave me the little bit of clarity that I really need to get my shit together. And I went down to recruiter, ready to fucking lie my ass off about everything. And I ended up telling the guy the truth. I wasn't flagged anymore, and I joined the Army.
Okay.
So now I ended up becoming a 19 kilo, which was an armor crewman. tanker for short. And I ended up going to Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic training. And I turned 22 in basic training. Matter of fact, I turned 22 on the final PT test. So I went up. Yeah, so I got like an extra minute and a half on that day on the run. So that was pretty much my start in the military. Was basically just a kid without direction and needed some guidance, and I needed something with security, for myself and my family, and the plan was never to make a career of it or anything, and all that stars and stripes, it was more of a go to war, go to jail type of deal, and I was just hoping to, not have a problem with authority and make it through my contract, and just get the extra 5 or 10 points on the civil service test. And I was going to come home and just try to get on the fire department and some stuff like that,
Yeah.
But this was a pre-war. So it was a really fun army. You worked hard and you had time off. It wasn't, the up tempo was nowhere near what it was during the war years, if you will. And, my mom, every day or every week I talked to her, she made sure she had to let me know who was still in jail, who was still getting in trouble, made sure don't come home. You know what I mean? That was my keep doing what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. And, for a kid with a problem with authority, I took to it, I went to juvie and stuff like that. So I could handle drill sergeants and, stuff like that. But the authority and the structure is what I needed because my parents were too old, you know what I mean, to give me that. And I didn't have older siblings because they were married and out of the house. So no one was really smacking me around telling me, all that shit.
Right.
So that's kind of how I ended up that way.
Did your years in the military go by fast? When you look back at it now and say, damn, that was pretty fast, 20 years.
Yeah. Even the slow years, they went by fast. It was, it's weird how it happens, basic training was an experience. And once you leave basic training and you branch out and you go to your duty station, you don't really know what to expect. Just when you start getting into that norm in basic training where you're like, you could yell at me all day now. You know what I mean? I've been in red face for the last 12 weeks. Now once you catch on to how the game's played and you get that, jailhouse mentality, if you will, boom, basic training's over. And now you're, oh shit. You know what I mean? Now you're in barracks life. You got all this crazy stuff and everyone's coming at you. And, it's just, wow. It's an experience that you can't explain. And when you said, did my time go fast? Yeah, it did, because I took to it like a fish out of water, though. I was that guy. I was that guy for the longest time. I'll do it. I'll send me to this school. I was the high speed guy,
Yeah.
And then I spent my time in the Army. I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, is where I went out of basic.
Okay.
So once I got to Fort Riley, I went to 1st Armored Division, 3rd Brigade. We're the only stateside tank battalions, us and 270th Armor. The other were in Freiburg, Germany, 1st Brigade, and 2nd Brigade was out of Bomber.
Okay.
So we had a small little dynamic that it was just 2 battalions. And life was different. We did Cold War training because this was pre-war. So all the tank stuff, our last doctrine was off of Desert Storm.
Okay.
So we did maneuvers on tanks, shotgunneries. I went to the field, and everything was tank life based off of the tempo and what was going on. I had a re-enlistment. My first re-enlistment window comes up, and we're at NTC. And they do the cliche, if you've ever been to NTC or anyone who's been there, when you first get to the gate, there's this whole wall called the Painted Rocks. And it's like a big everyone re-enlists there. All the units have like spray painted shit there.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you, this is pre-war, so I had you guys were re-enlisting for different things, like air assault school, airborne, and our sister battalion was going to Kuwait, and I volunteered to go to Kuwait, and that's what I ended up doing. So I ended up getting my first deployment about 2 years in.
Okay.
And went to Kuwait and did what's called intrinsic action. And what we did was we taught the Kuwaitis defensive maneuvers and stuff on what you call the berm. The berm is this big wall tank ditch that goes from the border of Kuwait on to Iraq. It's right across. You know what I mean? You ever hear that we crossed the berm?
Yeah.
That's the meaning of that. And so we taught the Kuwaitis defensive stuff, and it's just a rotation you do. And so I was calling home. So, now I'm the only kid in New Bedford who went from fishing boats to I'm in a tank in Kuwait. I'm doing all this crazy stuff. And, my mother, don't come home. Don't come home. You're doing you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody is seeing the best out of me, So that's just kind of how I went. And I just rolled that way. Mm-hmm. And that was the Army until 2001 till when them towers came down.
Where were you? Oh, real quick, did you ever keep in touch with friends back home, like when you left the military? Did sort of all that just go out the window?
It was here and there.
Yeah.
Like the ones. Now this was also pre-cell phone, pre-internet. No pre-MySpace. This is all that shit.
Yeah.
So not really. The only time I would is if my mother said she ran into somebody. And I would say, hey, say hi to so-and-so.
Right.
That's how you related because calling cards.
You only get so many minutes on the AT&T. Absolutely.
Yeah. So barracks phone. So that's what my mother used to send me was calling cards. I kept up with a few, like when I come home on leave and stuff like that, you knew where to go and stuff. But I had enough of my shit together where I didn't have to fall down that hole. Plus I was only home for like 10 days.
Right.
On leave. And a lot of my friends, they were in jail, they're not keeping up with that. A lot of people didn't know I even joined the military because I just up and left.
Right.
And the way I was living, people didn't know. There could have been many of different places I could have been at that point, and so fast forward real quick though, the war breaks out. And we're one of the first units in. We come back. My city, New Bedford, gave me the key to the city for going. And then we were on TV and stuff. And there was this other lieutenant. Us two were in OIF1. And I met him at City Hall. And they gave us this whole thing. I brought my kids down. And it was this thing. And when it was on TV is when everyone was like, yo, you joined the Army.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, I thought you were in jail. I thought you were locked up. It was a big thing. And then fast forward, to internet and Facebook and MySpace and all that. And then you could start classmates.com. And there was all these small little things you could start reaching out. And then that's how I got in touch with but once I kind of got into the Army, it was to get away from that shit,
Yeah, no, I believe you.
So as for my friends, it was, my friends became who I was stationed with. And then when I got stationed somewhere else, those people became like the people I left behind when I was in wherever I'm from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I look at Fort Riley as my hometown now. And those people that I'm stationed with were my friends.
Right.
And then when I left them. And that's how I kind of kept dragging it along because it was also the acceptance I needed was that brotherhood. You know what I mean? So Absolutely. That was one of the reasons why I stuck around because I had a lot of stuff that I never had, so it's weird how it works out because I would never pick that for myself, if I could go back, I'd do good in school, there's so much more like you could have done,
Yeah, absolutely, man. If you just I say the same thing. If I could go back, man, I would have just tried to play baseball my whole life. I wouldn't have done. I would have just put it all into that, man. If I knew the outcome of what you got to do, but hey, sometimes you got to go through different things to get where you're really supposed to go. So, you know, it looked like, I mean, it seems like the Army's all been working out for it. It all worked out for you, man. In the end, I mean, at least up to this point. So how far were you when you went to OIF-1? Like how many years in were you?
The OIF-1, we started in 03. I was going on like 6 years.
Okay. So you back over there for that's your second deployment, doing that, came back, then what'd you do?
In 2001, the day the towers fell, we were going to NTC.
Okay.
We were in the day room waiting for the buses, and that's when the towers fell. That's when they canceled the flights, and then we just kind of went about that way. And we supported, we had an infantry, we had 116 infantry, and we were supporting infantry guys because Afghanistan was starting to kick off. And that was basically the forgotten war until Iraq kicked off for the longest time, you know?
Yeah.
When Iraq kicked off, people were like, there was a war going on for 2 years prior, and a lot of people didn't even know that, you know?
Yeah.
But 2003, our sister battalion that I went to Kuwait with, they ended up staging early March 2003 with 3rd ID, who was on a Kuwait deployment at the time. They linked up and was there for the deadlines and stuff, and we were about 2 weeks behind them. April 2003, we left Fort Riley and we joined Thunder Run, and we became part of OIF-1. We drew war stock tanks and stuff from Kuwait, and then from Kuwait to Baghdad. We settled in the Kadamia district of Baghdad, and we took over. I loosely say took over. We took over the Ministry of Defense, which was like their Pentagon, if you will. And
okay.
That's where we became. We ended up losing one of my brothers in the Alpha Company, and we ended up changing the name of the camp. It became Camp Hunt in Kadamia, named after him. And so we stayed there a year, and we came back from OIF-1 in 2004. And we went on 30 days leave. And when we came back, we had orders. We're going at the first of the year back again. So we went on 30 days leave. We came back. We took like 30 days of refit. And then we went to the Sticks Gauntlet, went to the field, NTC, trained up, and January of 05, so 9 months almost to the day, we're back in Iraq again for the second time now.
Same spot?
No, we went to Baghdad again, but we were way up north. We went to this place called Taji.
Okay.
And so the second time, it was a different different deployment. Each deployment was different. You know, OIF-1, you know, we just took over on tanks. No ROE. We're going to do what we want. You know, curfews, blah, blah, blah. We were chasing back then the 52 deck of cards. You know, we were chasing Saddam and his sons and all that crazy stuff.
Yeah.
In between our transition between OIF-1 and our second deployment is when the Marines and those Blackwater boys got into trouble out in like Najaf and Fallujah and all that stuff. And that's when, you know, that triangle, Ramadi, Sada City, and all that kicked off. So when we went back, we went right on the outskirts of that. And we provided security for the elections. So that was probably the roughest time I had on that deployment, because we covered the north side, the top to the bottom part of Route Tampa, Cobra, and all those places in between. And those ballots were being escorted by tanks. And a lot of brothers hit a lot of IEDs, and it was a tough deployment for a lot of people, because we're going from taking over to, we're going to let some women vote. We're going to, you know what I mean? You could take your shits off. You know, you're going to vote. You know, we're letting a lot of fucking shit go on that a lot of people didn't want. So a lot of brothers stood tall for that, you know, and make a long story short, we pulled a year. So I came back, and we got back in 06. And my youngest daughter was just born. She was born probably like 2 weeks before I left for my second deployment. So when I came back, she was a year old. And now it's 2006. And because of the war, I got caught up. I've been in Kansas for 8 years now. My daughter's mother just got out of the Army. We weren't married. I came down on orders for Germany. So I split off. Ended up going to Germany for the first time, to the other brigade. I went to Friedberg, Germany, and ended up going to Iraq again. Later on, though, I had to get a little bit of dwell time on Rear D before they sent us. And in between all that, so this kept going on all the way until 2008. So over the first 60 months or so, I was in Iraq like 44 of them. So it was just back and forth. And that's when that tempo had changed, and the Army is what we see now, because everything happened. Also, money came in, all that GWAT money, and life just changed completely, and OIF-1 was 20 years now, so kids who joined in OIF-1 are retired.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the kids that are today, they only know the up-tempo Army. They don't know they're living post-war.
Yeah.
They're living post-war, but they're living in a terroristic state still. Their global war is still going on versus...
Still going to Africa, still going to Poland, still going to all these borders everywhere. They're just not like taking over with tanks right now, essentially.
Yeah. Soon as we left, 237 got ramped up and all that. And that Atlantic Resolve, they're in Poland and all over those places.
Right.
And that all happened right after, our deployment. So it was that's all it was. And it's a hard story because in between all that, you're trying to maintain what little bit of family, and you know what I mean? And
you got kids too, man.
Oh, it's just
like that shit's a horrible lifestyle, man. When you're leaving and going like that, it's like, what kind of life is that, for a family?
There was it wasn't. It just
absolutely.
Especially that young, it's not it's a lot of strain, and to go back to back, you just had to. All I ended up doing was just consuming myself in work, and and the rest, if it's there waiting, it's there waiting. But I couldn't do two things at once, and it destroyed a lot, if we will.
Yeah. So like, you joined. Obviously, I joined 2007, but I went back to pretty much back to. But like, what did the mental health aspect look like in your scenario? Not even just for you, but like the people around you. Did you guys, was sick call or like with the providers there, the shrink, whatever you want to call it, was that like open opportunity for you guys, or were you like, nah, F this, we're just doing this, taking over, we got to consume ourselves at work and just, hey, put your face down and go to work? What'd that look like for you?
That's a good question, because it's not the mental health. It wasn't what it is right now. I really believe that the war years is what brought it out, because up to that point, that stigma was out there. You know what I mean? That stigma was out there, and you got to understand. I'm not, in infantry, it's like 100 and something people in the company.
Yeah.
In a tank platoon, we only have 16 people. We have we have 4 tanks, 4 people on a tank.
Okay.
It's not like if I don't make it, now you're on a 3-man crew. It's not, there's an extra person. You know what I mean? So it's like you're the gunner, you're the gunner, you're the loader, you're the, you have a position to hold. So you don't make it, you're going to end up just finding yourself in, I hate to say it, but they were at the time, they're just going to throw you to HHC in support or something. And they'll try to find if there's a kilo slot open. And, that's just how it is. The mental health wasn't there until they'd show up. It's hard to say. In OIF1, the mental health professionals weren't stationed where we were stationed in Camp Hunt. That was straight tanks, the battalion, and scouts. That was it. Anybody who was like Medac or those type of people, they were in the
roll 3. They're in
the
headquarters, man.
They're in the green zone.
Absolutely.
In the green zone in OIF1, they're fishing, they're swimming, they got Burger King, they got all this crazy stuff out there. And they would tell us that they're there for us. They would show up after somebody got killed, you know what I mean? Or something like that to show their face. But the guys weren't having it because of that stigma.
Absolutely not. So you got no medical records, no documentation, pretty much of none of that. Not just you, but everyone else that you were serving with, man, before and after, right?
For the mental health portion, you're right, because there was no paperwork on it. For us, what helped us out was we have what's called a SIGAC report. And a SIGAC report is short for significant action. It means like if you get blown up, you know what I mean? It's going to go down somewhere and they're going to be like, hey, your bumper number, blah, blah, blah. So you have these reports of these things that you've been through and crews where you can get documentation. But for the mental health, we went, when the war broke out, no one really knew. We were like, we're tankers. When the war broke out in the Middle East, we were ready, because that's what the best tankers in our business were in Desert Storm. So now it's our time. We're actually going to do this. So we were excited, not knowing what combat was like. We were thinking we're going to be in and out of here in like 100 hours, just like last time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then we went back to back to back to back. So the up tempo was never there. No one could ever really, when you got back, be like, oh, I got to make a mental health appointment, because you're going back to the field. You're getting ready to go.
You're going right back to gunnery. Exactly, dude. Exactly.
Even though we went for a year, we came back for 9 months. We had 5 months of train up in between that. So, and then with the back-to-back, there was guys going from specialist to staff sergeant without going to PLDC because they didn't have time to get a school slot.
Right.
So now we have specialists who are staff sergeants, they're tank commanders. They haven't seen their family in 30 months. They come back. Now, not only these guys aren't even getting 30 days leave. They're going to PLDC. They're going to WLC. They're all conditionally promoted. Some are going back to back PLDC and then en route right to BNOC because of the rank that they got. Then they started doing waivers and MTTs, and family wasn't that family. Once GWAT started, families wasn't important. That was just over. If you were combat arms, that was plain and simple,
Yeah.
The National Guards and the reserves, really, they were just starting their first deployments. If you talk to people out of, at the time it was called Bragg, Hood, and places like that, Riley,
Campbell, yeah.
They're on around the clock rotations.
That's it.
And it just became Army became life, and family wasn't important. And if you showed that, that was just as much a stigma as anything else, because guys were coming and going constantly, and they wanted stability. You're not just an NCO anymore. You know what I mean? You're taking kids to combat now. It's a different world. You know what I mean? You can't be worrying about other stuff, and to be successful in the 19 kilo world from say 2003 through 2000 to the end of the surge in 2007, 2008, it was just out of control. It was the up tempo was go constantly.
That's crazy. It's crazy to hear that because, man, that's so backwards, you know. But like, even when I joined, I think I went to Iraq like 90 days after I got to Fort Campbell. They're like, "You ready to go deploy?" I'm like, "I guess, man." They're like, "You want to go on leave?" I'm like, "I just got out of AIT. I don't even have any leave." We were supposed to do 15 months, dude. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we did a year to Iraq, then we came back for a year and went right back like almost to the day to Afghanistan. We were supposed to do like 15 months and did like 13 and a half, and then I re-enlisted for Germany, and then I wasn't there that long, and we left with Fox Troops. So it's like, I mean, I was Germany like 2012. So you went to Freiburg, Germany, 2006. Then what'd you do? You went to Iraq, came back, then what?
When Freiburg and all those posts up in that part of Germany closed down.
Yeah, all the small ones.
Yeah, Mannheim, Bootsbach, and all those places up there. My D-Rose was still like 18 months out. So I ended up going to Ansbach, Germany.
Okay.
And what's down there was the 12th CAB, Combat Aviation Brigade. Okay. And what I did was right around the time the fallout from all that bullshit from the Walter Reed Hospital. Neglected wounded soldiers.
Yeah.
This was before Wounded Warrior Project and all that started. All there was the Walter Reed scandal. You know, the guys getting all the amputees and stuff getting evac to Landstuhl, Germany, and then going to Walter Reed, and then just nothing. That's when they started the WTUs.
Okay.
The Warrior Transition Units.
Right.
And you had to be at least. And you had to be combat arms to be a squad leader. So I stood that up in the WTU Bavaria, which was part of Ansbach, Vilset, Grafenwehr, and Schweinfurt.
Okay.
Hohenfels was, but they didn't have a WTU there because it was that fell under Grafenwehr.
Okay. Nice, dude. I didn't know. That's cool. That's pretty good. That's kind of a rewarding thing rather than going to war all the time. You're there actually helping people. Did you like doing that?
No, I didn't, because it's not me. It was very admin. It was very high profile. You know, everything you just deal with the garrison commander and the garrison sergeant major, and you're just taking commands from DC. You know what I mean? And they just basically give you a black Amex card, and you go build barracks, go do whatever and stuff like that.
Oh, damn.
But the helping the soldiers were, because I was at Ansbach, and like I said, it was the 12th CAB, the Combat Aviation Brigade. So I was getting wounded pilots. It was an Apache brigade out there. So, so those guys really needed some help, and that was the rewarding part of it. You know, the admin part and all this other stuff I didn't like, because it was such a heavy spotlight because of the Walter Reed scandal, you know?
Yeah.
So these guys were getting hooked up with primary care managers, barracks that had, handicap accessible stuff. These guys, internets and phones and all these crazy stuff that they were getting, But so, like I said, that was rewarding. And that was basically because my D-Rose was still out. So 2008 comes and my D-Rose is up, and I came down on orders. I went back to Fort Knox.
Okay.
I ended up becoming an instructor. So I was happy for a minute going to Fort Knox because I was going to TRADOC. That's where I went to basic training. So that's where that's where our shit is. So I was kind of going to be like, I'll be at basic training. I can woosah for a little bit. And no, it didn't happen. I ended up going to 216 CAV, which is BOLIC. BOLIC means Basic Officer Leadership Course. That's I went to BOLIC, the Armor BOLIC. So I ended up being an instructor, a Black 5 instructor for Officer Basic, teaching them how to shoot, move, communicate, and take them. It's basically Officer Basic.
Okay.
I'd rather have been in Iraq. I had better hours. It was just crazy time. It just never stopped. It was one thing after another. But in hindsight, that's where I really became a subject matter expert on my MOS, because I got to instruct it, and I had POI, and I had everything at my disposal, so which helped me out later on in my Army career.
How long you do that for? How long did you do instructor? 2 years, 3 years?
I did it all the almost 3 years. I did it until 2011 when I went to Vilsec.
Okay.
And then I went back to Germany in 2011, and it's where I was there with you.
Yep.
I was there from 2011 to 2014. Ended up going to
don't forget our deployment.
Eagle Company. I ended up going to Eagle Company, 2nd Cavalry, 2nd Regiment, 2CR. And it got reflagged, and that's when it became Fox Troop and stuff like that. But I ended up going to an infantry company, and I became part of what's called an MGS platoon. An MGS was just a modified version of a tank for the urban war. There's a Striker.
Yeah.
And, so we ended up doing that and supporting infantry for our time in Germany until we ended up going to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
You know what it was like. For those who don't know, ended up deploying to the Arghandab district of Kandahar. We're in this place called Kopjanat, and we were a standalone unit. Our battalion. Our squadron was based out of the Shawali Khat district and at a Fob Frontenac.
Yep.
It was a Canadian. Base that we ended up transferring over to. But while our company was standalone down in the Arghandab at Kopjanat, we shared a compound with ANA, the Afghan National Army. My job there was running the talk, and the commander's vehicle commander and his PSD. We would go and do what's called KLEs, key leader engagements, with the leadership from the Afghan army, and they would tell us about, why we're sitting in this COP when we're surrounded by mountains and we're just, you know what I mean? Like, why are we in this, like, this is not a good place to be, and but it all worked out. We were squared away ANA. Those guys we didn't really have to do anything. They did everything for us, and there was a lot more settling than we thought it was going to be, knowing that they actually did their job. During the rest of the time, we did what was called route clearance. Basically, we cleared routes of IEDs and enemy between Frontenac all the way down to Kandahar. And we were doing that day on, day off for probably about 6 months or so. And we would just alternate with platoons because a commander had to be on that patrol. So being on the commander's vehicle, we were going every other day instead of day on, 4 off, like the platoons were doing. We ended up doing what's called the transfer of authority. We were satisfied that the enemy and the Afghan army could hold their own, and we surrendered our flag and put theirs up, and we gave it to them, and we moved out. It's a video on YouTube if anyone wants to see. It's called the Kopjanat transfer. You'll get an idea of what we're talking about. And we ended up moving up to where the rest of our unit was, in the Shawali Khat district up at Fob Frontenac. We stayed there through Christmas and about March, April of 2014. And then during that time, we did patrols of the area, and we tried to help support one of our other troops. I think it was, if I forget, it was
Eagle.
Yeah, they were way out at like.
I had to go.
They were way out.
Out in the mountains, you had to take a helicopter. We took the Striker, but man, that shit, I had to get in the air guard hatch because I'm like, hey man, I'm about to throw up with this route. Like,
yeah, they were way on the other side, and there was only like one other base in between us, and that was kind of like where the SF stayed, and they had the J-Lens balloon. I forget if it was Bushmaster or whatever. I forget the name of the place, but it was in between us, Frontenac and Pacemaker. And so we tried to help them guys out because those guys had nothing. Those guys were living in the Stone Ages out there. They, those guys deserve everything they got for that deployment. But as it was, we made it through it, and we came back. We came back to Vilsec in 2014, and that's where my time there ended. I PCS'd, and I ended up going to Fort Benning. Went to Fort Benning, and I ended up becoming Fort Benning's G3 NCO. I was managing the CG's ammo usage, as well as other things. Being in the G3, everything falls under you. We did protocol, VIP visits, ceremonies, you name it. We did it. The CG that we worked for at Benning was General Miller. If anyone knows him and followed his career, he ended up becoming the CENTCOM commander. Everyone knows him as Captain Miller from Black Hawk Down.
Okay.
But then we transitioned probably about less than a year of me being there, and the first armor CG came in because Brack had closed Fort Knox. So tankers are at Benning now with the infantry.
Okay.
And make a long story short, the CG was my battalion commander from my OIF days. So this is kind of how the Army finally helped me out in the end, because I had an old boss who was my boss again. And being in the G3, no, you don't really, everyone just comes to you. They know who you work for, it's very different when you only answer to two people, and it was a different experience for me because I was expecting to go back to the line, but it wasn't. That's where I ended up retiring, and I did, had to do what you do over there, but everything is in the benefit. You see the Army in a different light over there because you're at the flagpole. You see everything that you've never seen before, and so many opportunities branched out for me during this time because of the connections I had, everybody just sitting in a room is the armor sergeant major, the armor commander, the infantry sergeant major, the infantry commander. They're all, sergeant majors and 1-stars and the post commander. And they just like, I'm just the next slide, please, guy, That's all I am, and I'm just in there happy on Mondays because I get to read the blotter, but other than that, it's just one of those things, when you see
how long did you do there? How long did you stay at Benning for till you retired?
I stayed there until 2017.
Okay. Did you know that you were getting out at 20 years? Did you have that in the back of your mind when you were there, or are you just living life?
When I got to Benning, I got to Benning right after we just got back from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
My mother died.
Sorry.
When on my trip back from Afghanistan, that's when my mother passed away. So after that deployment, and by that point, I was so burnt out. I was just like, I was just going through the motions. What happened to me happened to me. I would have took RCP like it was nothing. I didn't really even care. I was just tired. I was exhausted. I was burnt out. And so when I got to Benning, I was just like, all right, whatever. I'm gonna get out of here. I made the list. And then that's when they started changing the retirement, the 50%. And so everyone was starting to get worried because they didn't put in a grandfather yet on how far back they were going to go. And make a long story short, I ended up getting forced retired because I was in an overstrength MOS. Yeah, if you made the 7 list, you were looking at almost 24 months of getting pinned.
Wow.
And then that's when they changed the retirement also to the top 3. So you would have had to have done like 3 years at that rank to retire at that pay. So you're already an extra 5, you know.
Yeah, if you wanted to take the rank, and yeah, exactly, to get it.
It just happened. Hey, Sergeant Major said, "Hey, come in my office real quick." He goes, "Hey, you go put in your 4187 for retirement and blah blah blah." I was in an overstrength. Like I said, I was in an overstrength MOS, so I put in my retirement locally. A brigade commander signed off on it, and I retired out of Fort Benning.
How long did you have when you did that?
What do you mean?
Like when you did your 4187, how long did you have until you were out the door?
Well, I couldn't drop my 4187 until I'm a year out, until I was a year out.
Okay.
But you know, like I said, you know, especially who I worked for, you know, it was just going to the next office and having them sign it. It wasn't like in a normal unit, you're going to give to your platoon sergeant. He's going to give it to the first sergeant. It's going to go to the battalion. You know, it wasn't like that. It was just, here you go. You know, the CG wrote, the commander, when he signed my 4187, he already recommended for what I was going to get for an award. You know, it was just because it wasn't going to go anywhere. You know, like it can't go any higher. So the approval process and all that was fine. Once I dropped the 4187, that was the easiest time I had in the Army. It's just what you get from there on. There's a whole different Army now. You know,
absolutely.
Because now reality's setting in. You know, you've had this security blanket and umbrella for 20 years, and now you're like, I'm 40 years old. What am I going to do?
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. So I'm like, granted, those sergeant majors and those generals, they're not getting out the Army. You're getting out before them. So it's like, did you ever have anyone in your ear at Benning or along the way, like, hey man, make sure you get this set up? Did you know anyone that got out the military that you could like talk to, like, hey, I got to get my disability in order? Did you do your disability claim like while you were still in, or what that look like?
My transition from the Army was smooth.
Okay.
From active duty to the time I finaled out. Okay. That's good. The other part of the transition that's another story. The questions that you asked, I had it smooth because being in the G3, there's only like 4 of us that are green suiters. Everyone else is civilians. Okay. And they're all retired. Absolutely. They're all retired 7 and above. Right. So they had already been saying, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. I had it come in every direction. The sergeant major, the G3 sergeant major, he was a short timer with us. We cleared together. So he would, what are you guys doing today? What are you guys doing today? And, you know, he would just tell us, hey, come to this resume class with us. Come to this with me. You come. So myself and another NCO that was in the G3 with me, the sergeant major, we did his clearing. Yeah. The classes in the clearing he just told us to go with him. Right. So we had all the opportunities there. You know what I mean? So I got lucky in that situation versus how the process would go at a line unit. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Yeah. So because you deserve that, man. Everyone, you put your time and effort in, so good for you. That it's not lucky, man. It happened for a reason, dude. You did all that stuff. You didn't. It's not luck. It's good for you. Everyone should get that chance to have mentors and people around you that are trying to help you to look at, because there's always life after the Army, man. It's always, no matter if you do 20, 30, whatever, the 8, 4, like, yeah, man. So good for you that you had it smooth like that. So, but what about the other part, the transition? Like, what were you thinking about? Well, the transition, once we figured out that was simple, because being at the top level, I had everything like I said, at our disposal. Once the transition comes, once you final out, it's you got paroled. You know what I mean? It's I don't know how to explain that. You know what I mean? You wait and you were like, I can't wait to find out. Can't wait to find out. And then, I found out, and I drove home to my apartment, and I took off my uniform for the last time. There wasn't a hurrah or anything because I had retired months ago. The retirement ceremony was months ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had already, everyone. So when I'm clearing the last 10 days on that final out day, like I said, I just drove home, took my uniform off, and that was it. And now I'm out of the Army. So I transitioned into 2017. I get out of the Army. I'm in Georgia, and got a girlfriend, and we move in together. She's been my girlfriend from 2014. Well, they're going on like 3 years.
Okay. Probably
one of the best relationships I ever had. I blew that shit within the first 90 days of living together. And it just went a complete downward spiral after that, just one day I was squared away, and one day I was ate up from the floor up,
What do you think it was?
What it was a culmination of things. A lot of it, if you
like a sense of purpose, like you lost your sense of purpose, or what do you comment? Or I could agree. I could relate, man. I'm just here. So what you say?
Well, the story goes all over the place. You know what I mean? Because you learn later on what caused it all. But we'll just to keep the story going. I transitioned, like I said, everything's great. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting all these opportunities. I'm in the G3. I'm doing PT on my own. Hey, like life's good. Like this is the Army, and like I said, I get out. I'm not. Most people are not where they're from, where they get stationed. You know what I mean? Right. Most people either settle where they get out or they go back to something they're comfortable with.
True.
I had destroyed so many relationships and stuff in my past up to that point already that, you know what I mean? Where was I going to go? It just so happened to be I was in a relationship. So why not? Right. And I couldn't see a reason why not to move in. We've been together 3 years. I couldn't come up with another reason not to.
Right.
So like I said, I was just going to start my new life. I ended up, I got involved in my community, and I became a veteran service officer for the VFW, the American Legion, and the DAV. Okay. And I was mostly helping older dudes, pre-internet guys, who got out with no VA, get them their stuff, right. Helping widows get a military funeral and stuff like that. I was just trying to find my way. I was doing that, but I was on a self-destructive path that I didn't know I was on. I was on it for a long time. I was on it while I was in the Army. I didn't even know.
How'd you find out you were on it?
Yeah, but it came out after I got out. And make a long story short, man, she couldn't. You know what I mean? It was just I was on a downward spiral, and it was just too toxic. You know what I mean? She had a kid. She had to think about that too. So I got the DX'd. She DX'd me, and and then I was like, I left my animals. I just packed a few shit in my Jeep and I took off. I came up here to where I am now, off the grid USA, and just started like I was supposed to. I just kind of tried to forget, all that shit I just went through, and was going to consider me moving up here. All right, I just got out and this is where I'm going to start fresh. And it just kept getting worse. I ended up moving off the grid USA with no resources, no help, no family, no nothing, and as nice as it was, I could feel something wasn't right within,
Yeah.
Like what the happiness wasn't, no drive, no sense of purpose. There was, you know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
even your worst days in the Army, you're taken care of because you have a timeline. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You know when you're doing PT, you know when you're doing this. So you still got shit to do.
Yeah.
I'm just retired waiting for a monthly pension. The world just gave me 29 days of freedom a month,
Yeah.
And so to make a long story short, I ended up going through a really dark time. And, a lot of brothers were going through some dark times, especially my peers, because if I'm hitting the 20-year mark, we're all 1 or 2 years behind each other, and
Yeah.
some dudes are, that 22 soldiers a day, man, that ain't no bullshit. You know what I mean?
Many, man.
Guys are doing it with families, without families. There was no, every race, color, creed, orientation. You know what I mean? It was veterans getting out of the service with some fucking issues, and that was what they had in common, So
yeah,
it was all different walks of life too. It wasn't just combat arms,
Yeah.
a lot of those medics that are amputating soldiers in field hospitals, and if you lived you weren't combat arms, but you lived on that cop with us.
Yeah.
you were, you know what I mean? You were going to be combat arms if some shit popped off, because we were just in that little bowl.
Yeah. Just wait for something to happen.
Yeah. But yeah, man, a lot of brothers, man. And I didn't think it was me, because I've always been, come on down, Sarge, gotcha. Come to my house. You know what I mean? You always got a roof over your head, And guys were doing that here and there periodically, and it was keeping me going, but it wasn't enough. I needed something, but I wasn't getting it. I ended up going contracting through my hookups and stuff like that. I ended up going contracting. So financially, plus my pension, you know how that is.
Oh,
I was groovy.
Yeah.
And I got occupied for about a year with that, because I was doing Army stuff, military stuff,
Right.
So in hindsight, what I was doing is I just used it as an excuse to not deal with my fucking issues.
Yeah, you went back to being a workaholic.
I went back to and being a workaholic doing the same business was easy.
Absolutely.
Because, so I got to do that stuff, and then it all came to a head, brother. I hit a dark patch, and I was going to be one of those dudes. I made a plan, wrote everything out, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Peace out. And yeah. Well, obviously I'm here. So
I'm glad you are, man.
Yeah, that didn't go well. And the surprising thing about it was, you would think that would have been rock bottom. You know what I mean? And been like, all right, whoa, what the fuck was I thinking? I'm going to get my shit together. Someone was looking out for me, thank God I didn't die, And,
yeah.
It wasn't. I ended up hating myself more because I failed. And during that, just escalated into a Frank the Tank night, if you will. I ended up catching charges, and totaled my car. Got my car impounded, my dog impounded. Was in the hospital for like 4 days. I ended up dealing with all that. So in the hospital, I come through, and I had found out that I caught a couple charges. I had to deal with that. I thought I was going to lose my contracting job because of my clearance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just to keep speeding it along, I was held under custody. After I woke up, I was in custody for about a week in the hospital until I could get arraigned. I ended up getting hooked up with Veterans Court. So,
yeah,
which is
a lot of people don't know about that, man.
Which is an avenue which probably there's so much in Veterans Court. You probably could do a whole episode on that alone, and what they can do for people,
Absolutely.
But I ended up getting hooked up in Veterans Court, and it knocked some felonies to misdemeanor. Basically a major get out of jail free card with stipulations though. You had to go to treatment, and so a lot of stuff I was doing, I ended up I had to serve some time, but I got to do part time. Like I got to show up on a Friday and leave on a Monday,
Okay.
and I had probation and all that stuff, and but I was court order therapy, and that's where it all changed. I learned so much about myself through that, and that's what got me to where I'm at and on track now, was going through the therapy. It wasn't necessarily the court appointed therapist, but it was just enough, because the court appointments are kind of like they're not giving you top of the line. You know what I mean? You're going to social services or something like that,
Right.
And, so you're not getting the top of the line, but I got enough where I realized I was onto something, so I needed to do what I needed to do, from then on. And I started on the come up, I was doing the probation, driving to Boston, go turn myself in. I was doing all that stuff. I was contracting. Things are going. And then the pandemic happened.
Okay.
And it actually helped me because I was getting reprieves. I could call in. I wasn't having to go turn myself in. They were emptying the jails, if you will. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So like I said, I kept doing that, and I ended up, once I was able to venture off on my own, I got into therapy, and therapy was probably one of the best things for my transition. Because it answers, if it's what you make of it. You know what I mean? As honest as you are to them, you're going to get some feedback about yourself, and
that's true.
I needed to find out, I needed to know me before I could understand. I couldn't just say, oh, it was the Army's fault. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't.
That's true.
The Army was the best job I ever had. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't have joined the Army under the circumstances I joined it.
Right.
I would have, if I had joined the service, I would have done it out of, because I was a good kid growing up, and but it was the best job I ever had. I wouldn't change it for anything. I mean, I can't, I know I'm the only kid from New Bedford that took a tank across the battlefield. So, it's
living legend, man. Let's go.
So I tried different things. I started trying to figure out benefits and resources out there, and like vet centers, and I got hooked up in the VA and stuff like that. And that's it's a resource, is what I'm going to tell you. I can't say it's for everybody. I can't say therapy is for everybody. You gotta have a coming to Jesus moment with yourself and be like, if you're the common denominator for everything that's negative in your life, you know what I mean? You got to at least entertain the idea that some of this may be your fault. At least 50%, at least, or somewhat,
Right.
And, I see it every day. You know those guys. If you go on Facebook for more than, if you go on Facebook 5 days in a row, you're going to see those guys, they just manic craziness to nothing. You know what I mean? They're just like, F the world, F this, you mother, and you're just like, whoa, dude, calm down, and you see all your brothers hurting, and it's just like, so the therapy helped me realize that I had a pushback syndrome. I don't like losing people. So I had always so if anyone knew me and they were like, I don't know about that guy, can't get close to him. You know what I mean? It's only, that was me. I had a buddy who knew I got in trouble. I have a buddy who knows I tried to end it, but both of them don't know the whole story. You know what I mean? It's like you have a friend that you tell this to, you have a friend that you tell that to, which is, it's good and all, but I wouldn't recommend it. I'd recommend to have friends around you that you can have all that with. You know what I mean? You can tell everything to. You can't carry the shit, man. You got to, because any bullshit you have in your life up to that point is just going to multiply the shit that the bullshit you have when you get out. And for me, losing the camaraderie, the sense of belonging, the direction on top of, trauma and all that, you take all those resources that you were so motivated to employ when you got out and you just throw them there. I could go in a CVC bag and I could probably pull out all the brochures and websites and everything from ACAP to VA to MFLAC to, all these resources out there, Voc Rehab. But if your mind isn't there, it doesn't matter,
Absolutely, man.
I'd rather have my health than my wealth.
You need that before anything, man. Like you said, if you don't have it, what are you going to do?
If I wasn't fortunate enough to have my pension and that contracting money, yeah, I'd be no doubt one of those. I'd be wandering the streets somewhere. You know what I mean?
Did you get disability when you got out then? Dealing with the sergeant major and stuff like that? Tell me what you got. I'm just curious.
I did. It was I had already went to VA appointments before I even retired.
Yeah, you can do like a year out, I think, right?
When I went to ACAP and you go through medical, that's when they set up that appointment. And I went right then and there.
Okay.
And I had got my VA rating within 90 days.
Okay.
Of me retiring. Because I found out and then I still had to wait for my end date.
Right.
So I got my disability. Getting the VA, that wasn't an issue. None of that was, which I'm very fortunate for, because I have been helping a lot of brothers, and I know you have, and you were one of them. You got out with zero.
Absolutely.
You did yours after you were a civilian, which is harder. So
it's horrible, man, because don't be like me. I didn't even know. I had no mentorship. I had no guidance. And, if you're an NCO and you're clearing base, they're going to let you do it. You can sign off or do whatever you want. So when it was my time to go to I never even went for an initial appointment, man. So, I had stuff in my records and I did the math. If I would have got out 100% day one, I left $250,000 on the table. It's not all monetary, man. It's more than monetary. It's the taxes. It's the all the benefits that come for your kids, the schooling. But absolutely, man, do it while you're in. Don't be like. That's why I don't want anyone to be like me. I hope everyone can get it taken care of while they're in, because it is harder when you get out.
And it's only going to get harder for people because we're starting post-war.
Right.
So homeboys are going to start being like, hey, my knees are hurting. My back is hurting. It's going to be, the tempo is going to start going back to, non-combat, if you will. So there's going to be a lot more people banging the VAs, and unless you know those resources, it's very tough for some people, especially if Arkansas, Wyoming, you know what I mean? They may only have one VA that's in probably the capital. And for some guys I know drive 2-3 hours to have to go to one.
Wow.
And the VA, and you go there for a headache, you're going to walk out with 4 appointments and diabetes,
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys don't get treatment because they didn't retire. So they have to work.
They have to work still. Absolutely.
And the VA is only open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4.
Absolutely.
So unless you have a part-time job or you got some kick-ass boss who's going to let you off 1 or 2 days a week because you're going to have 3 or 4 appointments to the VA, that's a tough thing. You have no choice, but you got no choice but to support your family. So there's a lot of brothers out there that are, just doing the grind every day, and it's imploding, if you will, because they can't get any treatment,
Right. So What would be your advice to these people that are stuck in that scenario? What'd you tell them?
First thing I would tell them is to, look at where they're at right now. If I'm talking to somebody who's obviously, hopefully they're still active duty, find out what you want to do, what you need to get what you want to do, and go for it. The resources are out there. It's so, a lot of times you don't get the resources because no one asked for it.
That's true too.
A lot of people just need to ask for it, and they'll give you something because they only give you resources that are based off of the 20 people that are sitting in that ACAP class.
True.
You know what I mean? While some guy maybe, I cleared with a guy from, he went back to Samoa. So he had a lot of questions on like, where am I getting my resources?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so, but yeah, before you get out, you got to have a plan.
Absolutely, man.
If you have a family, you need to see the type of relationship you're in, because if you're your spouse, girlfriend or whatever, that's what they're there for, man. You can't man up all the time. People are there to help you. You got to figure out what you want to do. You can't just, the wife, been just following you for 20 years, and all of a sudden she's like, I'm moving home, and you're going to go live in a state with her and her in-laws, so
yeah, you
got to go look at benefits for that state, and et cetera. But the advice, it comes down on a personal basis too, because you got to know who you are. I didn't know. I knew I was getting a pension, so the job wasn't too, how am I going to eat? You know what I mean? Right. My pension was coming regardless.
Right.
So I was employed, if you will. Finding structure was the hardest part for me. So if I'm going to give advice, I'm going to give advice on, if you're one of those people, who are very closed off, people don't know your story. You've never told your family don't know shit about what you did in the Army or the military, whatever branch you were. And you just, no, I'm fine. You're going to be that guy all alone, and it's going to implode. Therapy was what it was for me. And then just reaching out, because like I said, it wasn't I destroyed so much shit. I had to find out why I destroyed it. You know what I mean? And once I found that out, I was okay with it. It wasn't about the other people. I was just like, okay, this is why it happened. And, if we got a chance to fix things, I will. But I got to drive on now, and I have purpose, and I don't know what else to say, dude. It's all fucked up, man, because it is, but I don't, honest, man. I would have to I'm all over the place. If I sat back and watched this, I would be like, you know what, I can now I have an idea on what I could talk about on that, because
you good, though, man. You talking about all experience, man, because you went through it. We all had our dark times, man. We all been through there, but you're right though, like you're not supposed to just bottle it up because it's a ticking time bomb. You don't want that to explode, man, for your friends, for your family, to ultimately try to devise a plan to take your stuff. Like that's like a permanent solution to a temporary problem, man. That's what they say, right? Like we can get through it, man.
When that happened, I guess it's what I needed, if anyone knows me, I don't do things the easy way. So, I mean, like, all that I needed. I guess I needed that as a push. It's the dogs.
How you get a Rottweiler?
Yeah.
I see ya. He's chilling. He said something. But nah, man. Hey, just know that I'm always here for you, man. I know we connected now, but dude, anytime, man. I'm not just saying that to say it. I'm here for anybody, even if I don't know you. You can hit me up on whatever, LinkedIn or on the YouTube. We're here for each other. We never left anyone behind before, man. It should be no different now. But
no, you're right. Sometimes it's a wake up call. You know what I mean? We hear someone who It could be any one of us at any time, you know. And
It could.
Never thought it was, you know. Keep in mind, you know, a lot of guys are anxious. You know,
Absolutely.
they got
absolutely, man.
You know, you got to keep your mind busy, and that's what happened to me. The TBI clinic I go to got me really hooked up. That was the game changer right there. Was the TBI clinic, because TBI clinics have a one stop, if you will. You know, if you go to VA and say I need to talk to somebody, okay, you're going to go to mental health. You go again, you may talk to another person, but TBI, they have voc rehab, they got speech rehab, they got therapy, all under a certain umbrella. And what they ended up doing was they help, especially like people like me, keep your brain going. And they got me into doing stuff constructive, you know. And you just gotta keep your mind going. It's not, I also found it's not a cure-all. You just got to learn how to continue on. You know what I mean? And you got to drop some shit before you can start fresh. And, you know, I'm on the come up now. So
good. You know, I'm glad to hear it. You know, we got to be, man. After going through that shit, we ain't got no time to be down in the dust, man. Got to keep coming up. Did you use a VA loan or anything like that? Or did you use GI Bill or anything for your benefits?
I had thought about it. Before I started contracting, I was going to use my GI Bill. I was looking into going to like truck driving.
Okay.
You know, you can kind of work for yourself. You're independent, you know, so it seemed like a good thing. You're traveling, you're gone. But the GI Bill really wasn't for me at the time.
Yeah, like you said, you
at the time. I'm not an academic, and even if it's voc stuff, it's not my thing. And
that's cool.
But I did use my VA loan. I used my VA loan on my home. I've used in benefits that I got out of that and stuff. But I had signed over. I had signed over my college for one of my kids.
Okay, cool.
Because I had known I wasn't going to use it too. Which a lot of people don't know that. I had known I wasn't going to go to college, so. When you signed it and you had to make sure you had 4 years retainability, I was already indefinite at the time.
Right.
So I didn't have to do the extra time. I knew my 20 would get me to it. So I did college when I was in. I got 2 bachelor's degrees while I was in the service. So I didn't, like I said, the GI Bill wasn't because I'm not an academic. But cool. I started going when that GWAT money first came down, because they used to have this thing called eArmyU.
Yeah,
all you had to do is they gave you the free laptop, and you could do these classes and stuff. And you know, I just gave girlfriends username and passwords, and they did it while I was in Iraq and stuff like that. You know,
there you go, getting them promotion points.
Yeah, that was it. That was correspondent courses and stuff, and that's what I did to make that's when you fight the cutoff score, but.
798, baby, all day, every day, man. That's how cooks was. No one wanted to move up as a cook. All people just sitting there as E6 for life, man. Like, come on now, man.
Oh, I was a tanker. The cutoff score was like 400 for like 17 years until it was time for me till I went to the board, and that shit went up to 798, and an overstrength was. I was like,
what happened, man?
I got promoted in Afghanistan.
There you go. Like, that's how I go, man. Get that promoted. Me too, man. Yeah, that's how I go. But hey, man.
That you're not.
Yep, that's how we did it, man. But hey, what do you do you talk to a lot of your friends from the tank game, and have they sort of followed suit with you and try to get their disability and all their VA stuff in order, or are they kind of like all over the place?
For the majority, my inner circle, if you will, my family, the ones who could just come here and stay as long as they need to, you know what I mean? Those guys,
yeah,
they're all retirees as well.
Okay.
So they had they had a little bit of financial security when they transitioned.
Okay.
They went through some mental health stays in hospitals. They've had some suicide attempts, and they've gone down the dark path as well. So we've had that in common, and we've talked about that a lot. we try to find the Joes who use help, and that kind of gave some of the guys purpose and stuff. But the tank world is very close because we're so small. There's only 16 of us in a platoon.
Right.
And, of that 16, one's a platoon sergeant and a platoon leader. So now you're down to 14.
Yeah, 14, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a very small community, and it's a tight-knit. Plus, when you eat, sleep, and live on a tank for months at a time with just 4 people, you know what I mean? You get very close and intimate. So we've been able to express some of these things. Me, not so much. It's kind of why I did this today. I don't feel like I have it in me to tell each person individually,
Right.
This is very outside of my comfort zone. This isn't something I do. I'm hoping this reaches the people that it needs to. The people that carry my last name, they can get an inside look to shit that they would never even hear. Especially my brothers, they need to see this. I don't know how to put it any other way. I just, it's a story to be told and no one knows how to tell it. It's just my experience.
Yeah, no one better to tell it but you, man. That's why you're here. And I appreciate you.
If I can take a tank across a battlefield, I can raise my hand and say, you know what, enough's enough, man. I'm not the man. I needed help, and
absolutely.
It's been a cathartic experience, you know what I mean? Like stepping outside my comfort zone. And that became the new motivation, and I was supposed to hook up with, I seen you and Santillan did one. When you guys called me out, and I was going to
we called you out, man.
I was going to do, I was supposed to go do the flipping the switch podcast with him. And I know we never booked. And then, so, I was very eager to do this because, like I said, this is definitely outside my comfort zone. And it's just something that I'm doing, and my next challenge is I'm actually going to my hometown in like 3 weeks, dude. I'm going to my my 30th high school reunion, dude.
Damn, you gonna roll up in a tank?
Yeah, I wish I could.
You have to, man.
I wish I could.
That's good. I haven't even been to a high school reunion. I should go to one. I think I might have been gone deployed on one of them. When I graduate, 2026 will be my 20 years. So I guess I'll go to that maybe. Yeah. Oh, that's good, man. But hey, guess what? When you step out of your comfort zone, that's how you grow, man. I mean, I wasn't comfortable turning on the camera and sort of telling my story and, getting people on here and talking to strangers. But hey, man, it's not for me. I'm trying to do it to help others, same way as you. We're not on here looking for clout, for money. Nah, man, we're looking at make sure we can lower the 22 a day or help you with your benefits, or just if you need someone to talk to, that's what it's all about, man. So I appreciate you coming on here. I absolutely didn't know any of that. A lot of your story, man. Honestly, I knew you. We knew each other from VilSec. We did our thing. We deployed, and then we all pretty much parted ways when we got back. Was it good? We always had good times and shit, man. Like I said before, I got sick as hell, man. One of the worst times ever in Janat, and you were the one that helped me out, man. We lived together like in that damn tent. But I mean, you and everybody else looked out, but you were the first one to come to my aid, man. And I always appreciate you for that. And for coming on here and being vulnerable, man, because I'm glad you did. And I don't know, I'm just, like I said, I'm always here for you and anybody else. So I appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me. It was easy. We got along easy because, I mean, even though we had different MOSs, it was easy to get along with you because the tankers were outcasts in an infantry company. So we were, what I mean? So we, it was just, you were the only, commo, medics,
That's it.
You were the only people that weren't infantry. So,
right.
So that was very easy to get along with the tank platoon, and, but it was great, man. Now that I look at it, like, the infantry guys, I never would have met those guys if those circumstances happened,
It's true.
It's very weird because the war would have had to have broken out because the Striker had to have been built.
Right.
Because they were light infantry, those guys?
I think so.
Most of them are light. Most of those guys
Yeah,
are light, right?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Then they got they got all on the heavy when they went to Germany. So
yeah, so most of those guys were going to be on their feet regardless, you know. So
it's true.
It's a great. Turns out to be, like I said, the best thing I ever did. But you know, yeah, we got to get the message out, help our brothers. But you know, we're helping you too. You know, you deserve this to get off and get some attention too. You know, so
Appreciate you.
yeah, I got a couple people that could that should come on here and have a good message for you.
Yeah, send them.
Yeah. Remember Sergeant Moats?
Yeah, dude.
Jason Moats.
My bad, Jason. Yeah.
Jason Moats, first sergeant, retired. I challenged him to come on and tell his story. He just retired. He's in his transition stage. I believe he's on terminal leave right now.
Okay.
So I believe as a senior person who's actually in the transition period right now, he could probably have a good story on what the newest of the new resources that ACAP's putting out, or Soldier for Life.
Yeah, absolutely, man. A lot of people, there's a lot of cool things like training with industry, like there's a lot of fellowships, a lot of internships that you can do before you get out. That was never really pressed when you're going back and forth to Iraq or Afghanistan. So yeah, it's definitely a new age, like you said, but First Sergeant Moats retired. Where you at? Report,
man. And I know he's not on Facebook. I got to go through his wife though. But James Merritt, First Sergeant, retired.
Yeah, where you at?
He's not on. His wife's on Facebook.
Okay.
He would have a really, really good story. One, he was our first sergeant.
Absolutely.
He retired, and he's a police officer. He's a police officer down in Texas.
Okay.
So I believe he would have a really good story about, you know, he's a married man. He's got a transition. He's got a good transition story. Plus, he transitioned to law enforcement. So we can hear a fair and impartial NCO way of how things are with, because cops aren't the most favorite people these days, you know. So I think it'd be a good idea to hear what he has to say, especially down in Texas with the border and all that crazy stuff that goes on.
I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it, dude.
So I think Sergeant Moats and
First Sergeant Merritt.
Yeah, both you cats, come on here and I challenge you. Daly. You want to go?
Where we going?
If you need someone to co-host, I'll do it for you, and let's hear your story too. You know, get your story out there. All right?
No problem, man.
All right, I know, because I know you got one, and your story would help a lot of people too, because you even admitted you did your VA afterwards too. So
absolutely, man.
So you have a different transition too. So
hey, if you wanna interview me, someone else said the same thing, I'm down to get interviewed, man. That's fine. I'm here to help. You know what I mean? So
yeah, let me talk to some of my other buddies. Because there's a lot of combat stories in there, you know, between all those guys, you know, and they gotta, you know, I think it'd be good for them old cats, them old blue cards to tell their story too, you know.
Yeah, man. There's millions of us out here, man. We gotta keep telling the stories, and it's funny because when I talk to people about this, they're like, "Hey, it's funny. No one's ever asked me to interview," or you know, it's like, "Damn, man, no one even," you know, like you said, your family doesn't even know. It's like you don't call your family when you're gone and tell them all the stuff that happened. Hey, we just got blown up. This happened. We just got RPG. You don't tell anyone that stuff, man. You tell the people you're with, but. Yeah, it's like our voices need to be heard, man. Just like everyone, it doesn't matter who you are. Even if you're not in the military, you should still have a voice in the world that we live in, man. So, yeah, absolutely right. I'm up for the challenge anytime. What would you think? How you describe your military service in one word? What would you say?
Exceptional.
There you go. Yeah,
exceptional. If you want me to go Massachusetts, it's fucking wicked awesome.
Wicked piss them on.
Yeah, it's the best. Hands down, it was the best thing I ever did. Real quick, some of the contracting, when I'm not contracting, I'm instructing. That's kind of how they fill some of the time up. And so I teach down at Benning. Every now and then I've taught I just came back from Annapolis, taught at the Naval Academy. I taught at West Point. I've taught a couple. I teach, most of the classes are like at the Pentagon or Fort Useless, Fort Meade, Fort Lee, all those those bullshit TRADOC ones.
Yeah.
I teach a maneuvers and tactics class, and
That's cool.
But oh shit, I just lost my train of thought. What were we just talking about?
You telling me that you're going to do all those classes at the all the TRADOC posts.
Yeah, there was a reason why I brought that up too.
Maneuver. You said, yeah, I don't know. That's pretty cool though. But
I don't know what you just had. You just had. I'm sorry, man. I got lost.
No, you good, dude. You good.
That's that TBI, bro.
For real. It's real.
Oh, I came real close to losing my license because of that. I was going places, forgetting why I was walking into grocery stores and shit like that. You know what I mean? I was bugging out for a little bit, and that was all part of that whole downward slide. So get with the TBI clinics and get with those resources. One thing I got to say about the VA is read their mission statement. You don't have to get all your help from the VA. The VA can outsource, and you can so you can get.
You could call the 800 number and ask them what the I had to do it when I just hurt my hand. I was like, I'm not going to drive all the way an hour to get an X-ray on my hand if I could go 10 minutes. So now there's a lot of things that are in network. You just gotta call. You got, like you said, you got to ask somebody, man. That's it.
Yeah, I'd like to hear some of those from people who use those resources because, like I was saying, like some of my brothers, they're retirees. A lot of them retired and stayed where they retired.
Right.
So as retirees, they fall under TRICARE Prime. So they're not really going to the VA. They're still just going to their primary care manager on post.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they're still getting active duty treatment. So a lot of them don't have to deal with the VA. So some of them are happy with that because they're just using the same doctor they had when they were in green suit because that's the PA.
Right.
So my people have a different outlook on it because they stayed within a 50-mile radius of their base that they retired from. You asked me about the word. Yeah, the Army was the best thing that happened to me.
Yeah.
And doing those classes and teaching those classes, I found out that if I had done something, it would probably maybe pick an MOS if you know stuff like that, help people join an MOS that is a marketable skill.
Absolutely, man.
You know what I mean?
That's a good one.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Not driving tanks in the States nowhere. So I was like, yeah, you're right. That's a good one though, man. You go, you know how it is in our community, my mom, I'd come home on leave and my mother would be like, oh, so-and-so, their son's in the service. And I'd be like, yeah, what does he do? They'd be like, oh, he's in the Air Force or in the National Guard. And I just be like, whatever, dude. You know what I mean? Like, you know how it is, right? Yeah. And then you start thinking, man, and like a lot of our medics and stuff, they took that training, folded it over, started getting, and now they're nurses and they kept going versus like, all right, yeah. There's a lot of opportunities in the military that I wouldn't be where I was. I'm not an academic, so I wouldn't have survived New Bedford. I wouldn't have survived my upbringing. I would have, if I did, it would just been paycheck to paycheck. You know what I mean? Struggling. Yeah. Like it would have been that was my outcome. To me, I got what I needed out of it. I got direction. I got some purpose. I got a sense of security. And I think everything else that comes with it, that's all that. That's what makes me feel okay with my VA when I get my VA check every month. When I get my, because I get my pension plus the VA, I like, all right, that's the price right there. And I'm okay with it. Absolutely. You deserve that, man. You did all that time and you put your life on the line and sacrificed so much, just like everybody else did. So you deserve it, and so does everybody else. Don't think you don't. You don't have to be a tank commander. You don't have to be. I was a cook. You could be a MO. You could be a 42 Alpha. It doesn't matter, man. Don't compare yourself to somebody else. Compare yourself to yourself. Did you serve? Yes. Did you do this? Yes. Did you sacrifice? Yes. Then you may be entitled, man. Get it in your documents. Get it in your records. Keep copies. You know what I mean? We're not telling anyone to lie, but play the game fairly. You know, don't have sick call frowned upon. Don't, you know, go swallow your pride. Go get help. Don't wait till you get out and have to do it all when you're out and you're on your ass like I was. No.
We have a country where we have a voluntary service.
Absolutely.
Every single person, every single branch raised their hand. So
Absolutely.
they're entitled, in my opinion, they're entitled to something.
I agree with you 100%, man.
And I think if more senior NCOs start addressing some of these issues that they have on their transitions and their time away from the service, I think it would help some of the younger guys, you know.
Yeah.
All right. You know what I mean? If the dude I'm looking up to, you know, is going through this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? Because my mentors, I look at them like Supermen.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they're like begging for help just like everyone else, you know what I mean? And you see a different side of them, you know, and it's it made me look inward because I'm like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it.
Absolutely.
And if I don't do it, who's going to do it? So
right.
That's how like I said, I think Moats being in current transition, and I think First Sergeant Merritt with the law enforcement and the border and all that bullshit down there, I think he'd have a good, because he's an NCO. He's going to say it straight down the road, not left or right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I think that's really good. I'll talk to my brothers because, you know, a lot of tankers, a lot of combat guys on this side that we didn't, you know, they don't, those MOSs on in at Vilsack.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Yeah, so
you got anything else? You want to close it out? Or are you good?
Hey, thank you for having me. This is me, raw, real, and uncut. That's how it is.
That's how we do.
Hey, it's the same message as before. Anyone's hitting a dark time or something, reach out. Your brothers are there for you. Someone will reach out, okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Everybody out there, we out there for y'all. So, hey, appreciate y'all listening in. Appreciate you joining me, my boy. And, hey, let's keep in touch and keep it going. I'm up for the challenge whenever you are. Thanks, you guys, for listening.
Yeah, hit me up. Let's close this out. Hit me up offline on the bat phone. And
I'm about to do it right now. We about to end the court. Hold on. I'll holler at y'all.